Hi, I'm B from Nectar Mechanics, and welcome back to part 2 of building LaserBeak. So in this week's video, I sanded. Well, I think that about covers it. I will see you again next week. Farewell! I'm kidding. Sort of. All I did was sand. But there's more to it than just that. So last week I ended off with the fact that it's kind of awful weather where I am at the moment. And I was like, well, I don't have a garage or anything, I can't sand. Weather cleared up. Weather cleared up just enough where it was still grey and not particularly nice, but I could still technically sand. And so I got straight to work. I started off with higher grits in all the pieces, trying to make sure that they look smooth and that they actually fit. Whenever I design my 3D prints, for some reason, I always seem to forget about the fact that I need to account for tolerances. So even though the 3D model says it will exactly fit, you have to account for the friction of the actual material, the fact that the printer might not actually print it 100% exactly how it's supposed to be modeled. And because of that, whenever I initially go to assemble my models, they don't fit. They're right, it's good, but they need to sand it down first, so that's what I did. I started off with higher grits. Unfortunately, I can't remember the specific numbers, but I started off with higher grits to sort of knock down all the high spots, make sure that the edges were all done, and eventually, after a couple days, it started being able to piece together. Now, the pieces are starting to fit, and that's pretty cool, but it still kind of looks ugly. Because of the way the printer settings are, whatever, sometimes you have little gaps in it, or it's just kind of rough, so I used wood filler to help fill those and then sand it. I've tried other types of fillers like spackle, air dry clay, various other stuff, but the only thing I've seen to find work is wood filler. The reason I use wood filler is that it's almost like a clay or a paste that I can push into all of those gaps and holes, and when it dries both hard, solid, and sandable. So wood filler it is. So that does mean that the grey print has bits of yellow in it. It's fine, I'm gonna paint over it. But that's like a whole separate stage, because not only do I have to use sand it to fit, sand it to look relatively smooth, I now also need to apply all the wood filler and then sand that down as well. But it's taken me a week of just sanding, but it's starting to look about right. Now on the pictures, you'll still be able to see the weird sort of grain and details. That's just because wherever there was a hole, there is now wood filler. When I primer it, it should hopefully just be smooth, or definitely smoother. Now, I learned with Doom Guy that I'm not using a resin printer, I don't have power tools, I don't have anything like that. I'm not gonna get it as smooth as I want with my current setup, and that's okay. So I'm trying to settle for good enough. I'm definitely glad that I decided to print off a second set, because some of the really thin pieces while I was sanding and trying to do dry fitting just kind of came apart. But knowing that they were fragile when I went to do it a second time, I was able to make it work. I do have one glaring design problem though, and it's that when you turn them into cassette and then you try to pull the feet out, they get kind of stuck. So not wanting to have to go and print off a third set with a revised set of legs and all of that, I'm gonna see about if I can add a tab or a hole or something that'll let me just sort of pull them out better. Or I might just sand them a lot so that they're floppy. But the really cool thing, it's starting to work. I was able to get the pins to sort of fit. I'm just using standard pins that you would to, you know, hang up a painting or whatever, and they work. They're ever so slightly too small because the pins that I modeled it for turned out I had measured it wrong and they were too big, so I'm using different sets of pins. So because the pins are too small, his joints are kind of loosey-goosey. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use lacquer or some sort of thickener, maybe nail polish, floor polish, that sort of thing, and just add a fraction of a millimeter extra thickness to it. It's a technique you use when you're doing toy repairs, so I assume it'll work here. But yeah, I've managed to make it work enough that I could do dry fits, and it's starting to look nice. I probably still have a little bit of extra sanding to do, because some of the bits I haven't got around to, some of the bits could probably do with a little bit more. But like I said, I'm not going to focus on trying to get it perfect. I just want it to look nice. So the next steps after that are going to be primering and painting. So hopefully we'll have some of that next week. If you want to see my work on other platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, Mastodon, then feel free to check me out there. It's just Nectar Mechanics for all of those, and I'll see you there. Farewell! Not again!